Bah. Oh. Brr. Bah. Hello everyone, Ryan here. So, it's kind of a funny story by Ned Vizzini. Hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. But I recently read this and it's terrible, just really awful. And no, I'm just kidding. Actually, I ended up liking it a lot more than I expected. And I mean, I will say I'm familiar with the author, but I've only ever read one other book by him, and I actually forget which one it was. I want to say I think it might have been his very first novel. I think I got like a really used, really worn in copy of it once for free from my local library. Meaning that free to keep. I didn't, borrow it, but I remember it had the word "cool" in the title. I forget, but and that was back when I had never heard of the author before. But I do remember I liked it. But this one, it's kind of a funny story. It's pretty much, it grabbed my attention right away. I mean, within the first chapter, but also, within the first couple pages. And, of course, the main character is a teenager by the name of Craig Gilner. And I guess, you could say he's pretty ambitious. Especially for a teenager. Which is one thing I found kind of weird. Because, when I was a teenager, I wasn't nearly as ambitious as him, or... but I guess, yeah, when I thought about it, I remembered I did have classmates that were just as ambitious, if not way more ambitious. Certainly more ambitious than I ever even wanted to be, but that's a story for another time. And so back to Craig Gilner. Craig, yeah, he's ambitious, and he ends up getting into an exclusive high school in Manhattan. It's called something like Executive Pre-Professional High School, or something like that, which I don't even know if it's a real school or not. I haven't looked that up. But yeah, so he gets into that school, and then it's kind of like all of a sudden he feels like his life is all of a sudden it's going to finally go his way, but then he quickly realizes that's not the case, and because he still has to deal with the fact that I guess pretty much he's struggling with depression. I would even say it's never really thoroughly explained in this book as far as exactly what he's diagnosed with, or but I guess it's safe to say that it falls under just the general wording or labeling. I don't know exactly what the correct moniker is, but pretty much falls under depression category, I guess. And so much so that he finds it very difficult to eat anything, to keep any food down, difficult to sleep, and eventually he starts having thoughts and actually thoughts which then turn into real desires. Mostly the desire to commit suicide, and in fact, one night he has an episode in which he ends up calling some hotline, and they recommend for him to check himself into the nearest hospital, and which he's kind of reluctant a little bit at first, but then he eventually does, checks himself in, and then he ends up getting the help that he needs. At the same time, with meeting a lot of other people, like, because the hospital he checks himself into, they have, like, it's a mental hospital, but there's a section for kids and then a section for adults. And I guess because this hospital, the particular wing of the hospital that has the section for kids is being remodeled, so he then has to go and stay in the section for adults. But then he actually ends up becoming friends with the people there. His roommate is named Muqtada, Muqtada. I just pronounce it Muqtada. Not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but his roommate, and he's like supposed to be some Egyptian guy who I guess I would say also suffers from depression, but pretty much his roommate just stays in bed most of the time, sleeps a lot, minds his own business, and eventually Craig gets him to come out of his shell a little bit. And actually, I would say the most interesting thing for me about this book was just the way Craig interacted with all these different characters. His roommate, Muqtada, and then there's another guy by the name of Bobby, and he's supposed to be like some kind of recovering garbage head, which is supposed to be like pretty much like a junkie, or I guess, except that in addition to drugs, it's someone who will pretty much try and do anything, any kind of substance. So it doesn't exactly have to be drugs, but so there's that guy Bobby, and he even makes friends with one girl named Noelle, who actually scarred her own face with scissors, and eventually she explains to Craig why she scarred her own face, and which is interesting, an interesting reason for her doing that. I wouldn't exactly say that I agree that. I mean, I don't believe that she should have done that. I don't believe anybody should do that to begin with. But the way in which she explains it to Craig as to why she did it, definitely just I guess if nothing else, just seemed to ring true with her character. And I don't know. I guess for me, like, also too, I mean, aside from the fact that I liked the way each character interacted with each other and how Craig interacted with them, but also too just the fact that it was, in a way, it was kind of like liberating to just imagine all these characters and in one room, because they would like spend a lot of time in like the cafeteria or lunchroom, or also the activities room, but it was interesting to imagine them all there together in one room and just truly being themselves. I mean, yeah, with all their flaws and imperfections, but pretty much not afraid. I mean, for the most part, not afraid to just be themselves. I don't know. I guess I found that, again, like I said, kind of liberating, but also refreshing, and in the fact that, I mean, I'm not saying that I found her to be cool or awesome, or we're all messed up, and But just, just the fact that, it was like, like I said, imagining all these characters with all their flaws, all their imperfections, and not afraid to just embrace that, essentially. Yeah, just embrace that. And I think ultimately, too, because that's something that it really rang true for me because of the fact that I've always been one to just, like, always try my best to embrace who I am, no matter, how weird other people might think I am, or, if I come off as... Because I know me personally, for most of the time, like, I've heard from friends and family members that they feel like, I come off as weird or shy or standoffish, or which is all true, and I agree with them. I only really care what people think about me, if they become belligerent about it and they try to, essentially, if they try to, like, really actively try to invade my personal space, and then it upsets me. Then I get frustrated and angered and all that. But for the most part, I really don't care what people think about me or say about me. It's... I guess especially since I'm in my 30s, so I feel like I'm at the point now where it's like, what... I don't see the point in wasting energy and really on any kind of negativity. But that's just my own personal view. And like I said, I guess because, reading this, it reminded me, I guess for me, it brought up a lot of that. It brought up a lot of memories for me too. Because I will say, there was a time, when I was a teenager, and I also struggled with depression too. And I guess you could say I still kind of do, but at least now, when I was a teenager, it was harder for me to deal with because it was like, it was such a brand new thing to me. And, but eventually, I figured out how to learn different coping mechanisms, and, a lot of which I still use today. So, and then eventually, I got into, I learned about, I got more into self-expression, expressing myself through music, through art, literature, and all that, and which definitely really helps me a lot, and still to this day. So, yeah, reading this book brought up a lot of memories for me, being a teenager as well, and just dealing with a big cluster of different things that I never really wanted to deal with to begin with. So, yeah, I guess you could say I kind of related to Craig. Although I will say I never, actually stayed in any kind of hospital or mental ward, mental facility, or, I don't even know what they're called nowadays, but I guess it was just more like, for me, like, I kind of thought of it as like an alternate reality, like, kind of like, it could have been me, as a teenager. I could have been in Craig's shoes, definitely. Especially, if I were like him and I felt like I was under a lot of pressure. And I feel lucky that I never really did, as a teenager, I never really did feel like I was under a lot of pressure. Although, there was a handful of moments, but yeah, because that's what ultimately drives Craig over the edge, is that he feels like he has to live up to all these expectations, and that's hard enough for anyone to deal with, so especially, and if you have to deal with that and deal with depression at the same time. I mean, come on, how can that not drive you over the edge? So, yeah. Another thing too, I definitely like the writing style, because nothing really seemed forced. Like, it didn't seem too forced or anything. Like, even the dialogue came off like just really natural, like extremely natural, and like if I was just reading, like pretty much like if I was just witnessing an actual real life conversation between two people. And I don't really, like, most of the stuff I read, I don't really get that. Like, I mean, even like in different novels that are like highly praised by millions of people, like when I read those, a lot of times the dialogue and that kind of stuff, to me, it just comes off as really forced. Like, and I don't know. That's just my opinion. So I mean, overall, I mean, again, I really enjoyed it. I got to give it 5 stars all the way. Definitely. I did Google some stuff about the author, Ned Vizzini, and unfortunately, he did commit suicide. I want to say it was sometime in 2013 or 2012. I don't remember. It was sometime around that era. Or I mean, hey, we're in 2021 now, so aren't we technically in a new era? Or I don't know. But then again, I often find myself wondering what day it is now. So, because all the days are running together. So, I'm sure you know what I mean. But yeah, I didn't mean to ramble on. I guess I liked this more than I thought I would. I will say the ending. The ending was my least favorite part about it, but because of the rest of it, the rest of it was just so well written, so well thought out, and the ending, it makes sense pretty much. It was what I expected. So I'll say really the ending was the only thing that I expected. Everything else I didn't really expect. I mean, I guess I expected it to be like a watered down version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But it really isn't. It's something else entirely. So, yeah. I highly recommend reading it if you get the chance to. Once again, I give it 5 stars. That'll do it for my review of It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening as always. Till next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.